What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Skratch coming up with another Raid Shadow Legends video. Welcome everybody to the channel. Hope you guys are having an amazing weekend. Today, we're gonna talk about top 5 best damage dealers for clan boss from every single rarity. Legendaries, epics, and rares. We're not gonna go all the way down to uncommons because we won't be able to make a top 5, okay? Now, when we are talking about damage dealers and clan boss teams, not every single one of the DPS champions will perform amazing in every single team. But if we're kind of like thinking about it, who brings the biggest numbers on the board, right? That's kind of like what we're going to point out today. When we are talking about legendary champions, there are a lot of strong DPS champions. It's pretty easy to narrow down the list to the top 5. If your gear is strong enough, regardless on what sort of team you're running, these champions will be still at the very top of the food chain, being the top DPSers, regardless if you're running a high defense team or if you're running a regular unkillable team, you know? So I'm gonna try to point it out, guys, in what teams are these champions being used kind of like to reach their full potential. I might miss someone, hopefully I won't. I try to make sure I'm not overlooking anyone, but if I do, please let me know in the comments down below, and apologies, I might be making a mistake every now and then. And as usual, you know that I can't help it, and I'm gonna have to give a couple of shoutouts left and right to different champions. We're gonna start with the very first 5 rare champions, then we're gonna move over to epics and legendaries. So if you don't care about specific ones, you might be able to just skip in the video. Now, this rare champion is very unique, okay? He is the GOAT, the ultimate GOAT, because nobody else in the entire game can hit as hard as this champion. The only thing with him is he can only be used on a specific team, and that is the Infinity Comp. So, talking about Corpulent Cadaver, okay? He is a freaking beast. Like, he deals 2-3 million damage per hit. Out of this world, okay? I still haven't built an Infinity Comp just yet, but I'm planning to do it most probably this week on the channel. So if you're curious to see everything about the team, stay tuned for it. Basically, all that matters on a Corpulent is his A1. Attacks one enemy, inflicts additional damage if this champion is under a shield buff. The damage is equal to 30% of the value of the shield. The bigger the shield, the bigger the damage. That's why the longer you go in the fight, the more damage this champion will actually bring to the table. He's a HP based champion, and if you are talking about the A2 and the A3, it's not really gonna do anything on the clan boss, so you wanna prioritize the A1. You have the aura, which increases ally defense in all battles by 15%, which is actually pretty decent for a rare champion. This places a shield buff on the champion equal to 20% of their max HP for 3 turns. Grants an extra turn. Is not really gonna help you out because you're gonna have bigger shields already, which are for a longer duration, so this is gonna be pointless to use. But Corpulent Cadaver, Infinity Comp only, the highest damage dealer in the entire game. It's absolutely insane what this champion can do, and I'm very surprised that Plarium never actually changed his skill whatsoever, you know, which is a good thing. The next champion that we have on the list, and this is the number 2 champion as the best DPS for clan boss from the rare rarity. We have Frozen Banshee, of course. I feel like pretty much everyone knew about it, right? Frozen Banshee, she's just amazing. She was part of the Battle Pass, the very first and only Battle Pass that we actually got in Raid. So on the A1, attacks one enemy 2 times. She has a chance of placing poison debuffs for 2 turns if the target is under a poison sensitivity. She was the very first champion actually to bring in to the game poison sensitivity, and she lands that on a 3-turn cooldown with the A3. The thing with Frozen Banshee is that if she gets resisted on the A3 and you don't have the poison sensitivity, she won't really land poisons. It's nice if you can, of course, pair her with a different champion that brings in poison sensitivity. If no, don't worry because she's still gonna have your back. She deals insane damage. You can run her on high defense teams, on a lot of different unkillable teams. When you are building unkillable teams, guys, the whole idea is that you need to have defense down, preferably weaken as well, and then bring in other DPS. So That's why on teams like the Barrier, Frozen Banshee, she doesn't perform as well because you're missing defense down. All the other champions won't perform as good as with a Dracomorph or with an Anax because they will bring you defense down and weaken, which will raise the damage by quite a bit. But Frozen Banshee, high defense teams, double Maneater teams, double Demeter teams, Helicat teams, counter-attack teams, infinite buff teams. Like, there's so many different teams where you can actually use a Frozen Banshee. And we have an accuracy aura for all battles. The next rare champion that we have on the list as probably being the third highest DPS as a rare champion, I'm gonna have to go with Coldheart in here. So back in the day when we started playing Raid Shadow Legends, we didn't have so many champions, of course. Coldheart was part of the vanilla game, and having Coldheart for Clan Boss or Xavier at that moment in time was like, wow, it's like having right now a Turvold or a Ninja in Clan Boss. That's how powerful Coldheart used to be, no joke. She used to be so freaking amazing for Clan Boss because she has a Giant Slayer on the A1, quadruple hit. We have poisons on the A2, and we have an enemy max HP, you know. At that moment in time, she was very strong, and even now, there are not many rare champions that can actually compete with her damage, even for Clan Boss guys. Her stats are not as amazing, so it's a bit harder to keep her alive on high defense teams, but it's still doable, you know. The next champion that we have on the list as a rare one is no one else but everyone's favorite starter champion. We have Kale, okay? He is actually pretty solid for Clan Boss early on if you're trying to progress. So we have attacks one enemy, has 100% chance fully booked to land a 2.5% poison debuff for 2 turns. This skill right here just deals damage. But then we have the A3, attacks 4 times at random, fully booked a 50% chance of placing a 5% poison debuff for 2 turns. So you can actually land some poisons with masteries. You can increase the duration of poisons and increase the chance for him to land the poisons from the A3. HP aura for all battles. You know Kale. Everybody knows Kale. Then we have another rare champion, which probably is not that popular, okay? It's not that popular, and it's gonna have to be Assassin. It's actually not that bad for a rare champion, you know? I'm not gonna throw him in there with the big wolves. I don't think I missed any other rare champion that can perform better than Assassin, but if I did, please let me know in the comments down below. We are talking about DPS. Bulwar can be interesting with his passive, but I feel like you need other champions to make him work, and all around he doesn't smack that hard. Assassin, attack-based champion from the Shadow King faction, attacks one enemy, has a 75% chance fully booked to place a 5% poison debuff for 1 turn. The A2 attacks one enemy, has a 75% chance of increasing the duration of all debuffs on the enemy by 1 turn on a 3-turn cooldown. So if you have attack down, defense down, poisons, weaken, etc., HP burn, he's gonna get to extend all those debuffs with the A2. 75% chance with masteries. Actually, I don't think the masteries will affect this skill if I'm not mistaken, because it doesn't work on Vizier either. So a 75% chance, and he brings a small version of weaken on a 3-turn cooldown with the A3, and a speed aura for all battles. Pretty interesting for a rare champion. Moving over to the next rarity, and that is epic champions. I bet that a lot of you guys already know who's the king in here, who's the GOAT, the #1 damage dealer for epic champions, and I've been saying it all the time. I'm using him in my team for Ultra Nightmare. Is no one else but Anax, man. This champion is a freaking killing machine, okay? So much damage. He has pretty good base stats, high attack. On the A1, attacks one enemy 2 times. Each hit has a 35% chance to land defense down. You can get that up to 40% with masteries. The A2 attacks one enemy 2 times. Each hit has a 100% chance of placing decreased accuracy and a 5% poison debuff for 3 turns. Very, very nice. The A3 attacks one enemy and has a 100% chance to land weaken on a 3-turn cooldown. This brings a lot of damage. The passive is kind of like his killer. Because of the passive, you can use him on double Manitor teams or stuff like that, you know. But you can use him on the Barrier, you can use him on Helicat teams, on block damage teams, you can use him on the War Crusher comp, you can use him on the Batman Forever, you can use him on Mitfu, you can use him on a lot of teams except the double Manitor because of his passive, you know. The next champion that we have on the list is probably everyone's favorite. I mean, for a lot of you guys out of the epic champions, when you're talking about Fane, you know that you are talking about a solid clan boss champion, right? So she was actually given for free to everyone that was playing Raid Shadow Legends, I feel like over 1 year ago with a promo code or something like that. So on the A1, attacks one enemy 2 times, has a chance to steal Thermeter. This doesn't work on the clan boss. The A2 attacks one enemy and has a 100% chance to land 2 5% poison debuffs and a decrease attack. The decrease attack is not very helpful on unkillable teams, but very helpful on high defense teams because you can have a backup for attack down. Don't count on her as the main, but you can have her as a backup, you know. The A3 attacks one enemy 3 times and she brings defense down and weaken. Now, Fane, she doesn't really hit super hard when we're talking about damage. Even with crazy gear, she's not like gonna destroy the clan boss like Anax does. But everything that comes from her kit is actually super powerful for clan boss, and out of the epic champions, there's no one else that can really contest her for most of the teams. Except the next champion, Geomancer, right? What a freaking beast. The #1 boss slayer in Raid Shadow Legends. Regardless if you're talking about dungeon bosses, Doom Tower bosses, Geomancer is slaying them all. So on the A1, AoE attack, decrease accuracy, not very beneficial for clan boss. And I gotta admit it, okay? Do let me know in the comments down below, please. I've never built a Geomancer for full damage. I have no idea what is his full potential. So if any of you guys did, please let me know in the comments down below. We can steal the attack up, we can steal buffs with this skill or remove them from the enemy. So this is actually a very nice skill to use against the clan boss on high defense teams because you're gonna steal his increased attack or remove it, and that's gonna help you to keep your team alive for a little longer. The A3 fully depletes the Thermeter, doesn't work on the clan boss, but the HP burn and the weaken, which is on a 3-turn cooldown and 4 3-turns on the target, is what makes this champion super powerful together with a passive that reflects the damage. So Geomancer is that champion that works amazing on unkillable teams, especially with unkillable not block damage. I feel like whenever I try him with block damage, I don't see all that damage reflection getting back. A lot of people are constantly telling me, no, he works with block damage. Well, I tried him in a few teams and all I've seen going back was just the War Master proc, so I haven't actually seen him performing the same way like on unkillable. I might be wrong, maybe it was just the run that I've done and was not looking alright. But with unkillable, he actually brings in tons and tons of damage. You can use him on high defense teams, but he is better on affinity clan boss, okay? So not on void, because the clan boss will multi-hit and that will actually proc his passive more often. Such a beast of a champion. The next one that I have on the list is another freaking awesome champion, and he can work on any sort of team. Unkillable, high defense, hybrids, whatever. No one else but Farrakin the Fat. Probably a lot of you guys are like, well, Skratch, Aina, Suwai, Firstborn, they hit harder than Farrakin. They do hit harder, they can work on the Barrier, they can work on Mitfu or a similar team like that. But that's about it, right? Farrakin is kind of like a king on them, and we have defense down on the A1, we have poisons, HP burn, ally attack, increased crit rate, increased crit damage. He has this damage mitigation which helps to keep him alive on so many different teams, right? I managed to 1-key with Farrakin on the Barrier. Pretty much very similar with, right, Aina, Suwai, which are from the same faction, so I do want to give them a bit of a shout out, but I feel like I would pick him all day long over the two of them for a clan boss team. So you have Aina, actually, I think I was saying Fina or something like that, but she's actually pretty interesting. I've done a video recently on her, extra chance to get an extra turn in here. one enemy, bang, weaken, and then we have defense down. Pretty interesting, decent multipliers. She can smack pretty good on the clan boss. Suwai Firstborn, kind of like her twin sister. She does a very similar thing, defense down, weaken, and this is an attack down, which is not really beneficial for unkillable teams, but it can help you on other teams. It's hard to build these two champions for high defense teams, you know. But I still wanted to give them a bit of a shout out in here. Right now, the next champion, the 5th champion on my list for top 5, is no one else but Liberka. Okay, you can get her from the Doom Tower. On the A1, attacks one enemy. She has a 60% chance of placing a poison debuff for 2 turns. On the A2, attacks one enemy. 100% chance of placing 2 poisons for 2 turns and a poison sensitivity debuff on a 3-turn cooldown. Then we have increased defense, increased attack on all allies for 2 turns on a 4-turn cooldown. And then we have the passive. When attacked, a 50% chance of increasing the duration of all poison debuffs on the attacker by 1 turn. A very similar thing with Geomancer. Better on Affinity Clan Boss. Multi-hits, bang, bang, bang. This passive will come in play more often. She is Void Affinity. Poisons, increase attack, increase defense. This makes her actually very good for pretty much any sort of team. High defense, unkillable teams. She has very good base stats, so she can stay alive fairly decent. She's not gonna hit very hard in terms of raw damage, but all around she will bring a very, very solid damage to your team, you know. And now I will give a shout out to my buddy Occult Brawler. He got power creeped a lot, and unfortunately that's kind of like how it goes in these games. Poison on the A1, and the passive again lands a poison, but he cannot compare with the other 5 champions that I just named in here. Dark Kale, another stronger champion, epic for clan boss, so I just wanted to mention him too. I don't find him as powerful as Liberka for clan boss, just for the simple fact that he's constantly dropping the poisons, so you won't really get to fill up the bar. And then her passive is a bit better, right? Like she increases the duration of the poison, so you get to deal more damage on the boss. He can be better with the Vizier in the team, but is a bit more situational, so I feel like he does deserve a shout out. These are definitely like in top 10 in terms of epics. This will be a top 10 right now, you know, but I do want to give them a shout out because some of you guys might not have the very first 5 epics, but you might have one of these, and at least it's worth mentioning for people to kind of like help out if you need a better DPS for clan boss. Rugnor Gold Gleam is actually very solid. He can 1-key on the Barrier, Void Affinity, Leech on the A1. Right here you have sacrifices HP. You can actually switch this skill off completely and just go in for this skill. Weaken, defense down, increase attack, and the passive decreases the cooldown whenever this champion loses 15% HP. Pretty nice. You can switch the A2 completely. You have an attack aura, but only for the Doom Tower. Mainly for unkillables with this champion, but if you need a defense down and weaken on high defense teams, you can use him as well. It's just gonna be slightly harder to keep him alive. Moving over to all the big boys, the legendary champions. Now, here, how I mentioned, we have tons of options. So if I haven't mentioned anyone, it might be because they are not top 5, but it doesn't mean that they won't be top 10. And I'm telling you this from experience, okay? I tested most of these legendaries in so many different teams, so many different times. So I kind of like have an idea what sort of damage we can get from them. Of course, the number 1 champion is going to be no one else but Ninja. Now, when we are talking about Ninja, I know a lot of you guys cannot get him anymore, and I'm sorry. I wish Palladium would introduce a way for people that don't have him to get him in a way or another. Defense down on the A1. This star meter can mess him up on a lot of teams. He is working amazing on unkillable teams. The reason for it is because you can build him with tons and tons of damage, and that will just melt the boss. Like, he can do so much damage with the Hellburn skill. It's just crazy. Attacks 3 times at random. Each hit places a HP burn and detonates it at the same time, activates it, which is definitely really nice. Then this skill right here, whenever used on a boss, is actually decreasing the cooldown the A2, which helps it quite a lot when you're using it. It's a single target when you're hitting a boss, sorry. The passive is what makes him insane. Increases ninja's attack by 10% up to 100 and crit damage by 5 up to 25 each time a single enemy is hit by all 3 of ninja's active skills in a single round. So when we go on bosses, you see, it's gonna happen a bit faster. Now, the whole idea with him is that you're gonna have 5k attack, then you put the increased attack buff, right? And then you're gonna multiply that with 100, so basically double that. He can get to like 20k attack, man. It's just crazy what ninja can actually do. Out of this world, okay? That's why he is the #1 damage dealer. Now, I'm gonna move and talk about Ishinaki towards the end, because I'm a bit like, who should take this spot, you know? So maybe we're gonna do like a top 6 for the legendaries. But Ishinaki, he is a beast of a champion. We're gonna come back to him in just a second. #2 champion as a DPS. And right here is a bit of a pickle as well. #2, #3, you know? So we have Torghast. He was guaranteed as a champion not long time ago from Voids. He can smack for around 1 million and a bit with a Juggernaut. Very powerful skill. You won't be able to make him work on every single team. Again, you do want to have defense down brought in by a different champion if you want him to perform to his full potential. You want him to have a lot of buffs if you want him to deal crazy damage with this skill. The A1 attacks one enemy 2 times, has a chance to land weaken. This hits pretty hard as well. He's not gonna bring you poisons, HP burn. He's gonna bring you raw damage. Very, very nice. Increase attack, increase crit rate, increase speed, extra turn. This is another skill that will kind of like throw him out of sync from quite a few teams, but you can make it work with him. You can actually switch this skill off completely, you know. I wish this aura would have been for all battles. That would have made him like huge for clan boss, because you're gonna be able to use his aura, you know. Pretty good base stats. But Torghast, the majority of you guys are already familiar with this big bad boy. Now, I mentioned a bit of a pickle. #2, #3. A lot of you guys might not be aware that Lord Shazar is a freaking monster when we are talking about clan boss. Sorry, I clicked on that. I was just looking like, why is he not here? Lord Shazar. And we're not talking about bombs. We are not talking about this skill either. You can switch this off, and just look at the A1. Attacks one enemy 3 times. Damage increases by 15% for each debuff on the target. Now, if you have the debuff bar full with defense down, weaken, poisons, or whatever, he's gonna hit for around 600 to 700k. And I'm talking here about crazy gear, okay? I'm talking about crazy gear. Just think of... And the reason why I'm saying what damage, because I just said Torghast could hit for 1 million with the same stats that Lord Shazar could hit with the A1, 700k damage, plus he's a Giant Slayer. Only using the A1 on Lord Shazar will actually bring you pretty much the same damage as Torghast, man. It's crazy to say it, but it's true. I've seen it with my own eyes. The only thing is he's not Void, so he won't be as efficient on every single affinity. But damn, Lord Shazar can actually smack so freaking hard with A1. You gotta try it. I actually have a video on him. He beat Torghast in that video with around 10 million, if I'm not mistaken, on damage. I think around there. But damn, that was actually very, very crazy. Now, of course, a lot of RNG can come in play here and there. The next champion that we have on the list, guys, is no one else but Jintoro. He works best in unkillable teams, and the reason for it is because either you're playing unkillable teams that have a 2-to-1 ratio, either you're playing him on Relentless. I tried him on teams where he's actually not using Relentless, not going on a 2-to-1 ratio, and I gotta say it, I'm a bit disappointed with his damage, okay? That's why I actually use Anax over him, because Anax just smacks harder all around. He does have an attack aura for all battles, which is great. The A1, it can grant an extra turn if it kills an enemy, not helpful for clan boss. The A2, not helpful for clan boss. Only the part that we cannot manipulate the thermometer, so it decreases the cooldown of the A3. And this skill right here brings defense down weaken, and every 4 times you're using this skill, he will attack 5 times instead of 1 with this skill. So this, on the same stats with Lord Shazar and Turvold, can hit for 1 million, 1.2, 1.3. It really depends on the RNG. Is very, very solid, but if you want to make the most out of Jintoro, you gotta have him on 2-to-1 ratio, so he takes a lot of turns to use this skill a lot of times. That's kind of like how it goes with Jintoro, you know. Then, we talked about Ishinaki, Dracomorph, Jintoro. I feel like it's very hard to pick in between these 3. Ishinaki is a newish champion, right? I haven't tried him in so many different teams, but I tried him on a few teams where I almost hit 100 million only with him. What makes him so special? So the A1 has a chance to land HP burn. The A2, we have decreased defense and decreased attack on enemies under Hex. This champion can be used on high defense, can be used on even on some unkillable teams, even though he is more recommended for high defense teams because you can build him better, you can form a team around him, you know. So an endless buff comp or something like that. An endless buff or stuff like that is not the infinity comp, guys, okay? That's something else. The A3 attacks all enemies 2 times. The first hit removes all buffs, so you can remove the attack down from the clan boss. Attack up, sorry. The second hit places a Hex debuff for 2 turns. Whenever an ally attacks an enemy under a Hex debuff, this champion has a 50% chance to team up and join the ally attack, ally defense in all battles. So mainly, he's gonna get to attack and attack and attack and attack all day long because of his passive. That's what's actually gonna bring in so much damage from Ishinaki, and trust me when I'm telling you, do not underestimate this champion because he is a freaking beast for Hydra, for clan boss. Very, very nice as a champion. And of course, I mentioned Dracomorph. Even though a lot of things changed in the game, he's still at the top, you know. So Dracomorph is much easier to build than a lot of other champions because if you are using him on an unkillable team, he already brings poisons, he brings defense down, weaken, he hits so hard with the A1, you know. The more debuffs you have on the boss, the harder he hits with the A1. 4 poisons on a 3-turn cooldown, defense down, weaken. The only thing with him is that the A3 doesn't actually hit the target, okay? And when you're using him on high defense teams, whenever he's using this skill, it's gonna be harder for him to heal back. So he's gonna die pretty fast if you're not running ally attack or counter attack. It's gonna be pretty hard to keep him alive. But guys, this is my top 5 from each rarity. I know I gave you a couple of extras for epics, and I gave you Ishinaki too for legendaries here because I feel like, yeah, Dracomorph, Jintoro are very, very similar, you know, and there are plenty of other legendary champions that can help you out depending on what sort of teams you're running. High defense, unkillable teams. I know unkillable teams are kind of like the most popular sort of teams. Chagur, we have Leorius, we have Fushan, Septimus, Brachus, so many other champions, but these are the best of the best. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments down below if I missed anything whatsoever. And don't forget, if you enjoyed the video, smash that like, subscribe for more content. Appreciate all of you guys watching, and I'll catch you all soon in the next video. Peace.